And I'm going to share my screen, and you can let me know if you're able to see this. I'm going to put it in presentation mode. All right, is everyone able to see this okay? Perfect. All right. So my name is Duvie Sanchez. I'm the Assistant Director of Recruitment here at the Graduate School of Education. You don't have to worry if you're going to miss any of this information. I'll make sure that we have all these slides sent to students who are participating in today's recording, as well as a copy of the recording to give to you. All right. So today's webinar is on Graduate School 101. So it's for those who may not be sure how to go through the graduate school process, or this is their first time going through that process. It can be pretty daunting, especially if you're new to this environment. So today's agenda, we'll be going over program fit, preparation requirements, tuition costs and funding opportunities, tips for going to grad school, and also some resources. So at the Graduate School of Education, just to give you a little bit of clarity over our programs, we do have 4 departments to choose from. Those 4 departments are Counseling, School and Educational Psychology, Educational Leadership and Policy, Learning and Instruction, and Information Science. So we do have a good range of programs within our own school. They range from counseling programs to educational programs if you want to be a New York State certified teacher. We have programs that are more so for those who want to work in higher education settings, and of course the information sciences. So that can include school librarianship as well as many other programs. So program fit, and what does this mean? Graduate school is a huge step. Anyone who's ever applied to graduate school will tell you that, whether that's applying to a master's program, a doctoral program, or an advanced certificate. So the one thing that we encourage students to do before they even begin the process is to do their research. We understand that you may be looking at other schools outside of GSC. We want you to make sure you're finding the best program that is good for you and your fit. So you might ask yourself, is this program going to help me reach my educational career goals? Do I want to travel for a school? Maybe the school you're interested in is out of state. Is that in my budget? Is that in my resources? So just asking yourself the questions that kind of go into, is the school a good fit for you? You also want to get to know the faculty of the program you're applying to, because those will be your advisors. So is this a good person that can advise me in my program? So these are questions that you might want to ask while you're going through it. I have listed a sample of our programs, just to give you another example of what we offer at the Graduate School of Education. But when you're looking into other schools besides our own, make sure you get a complete understanding of the programs they offer so you can make that good fit for yourself. Preparation. So as we mentioned, going to grad school is a big step. So you want to make sure that you're prepared to do this in process and go through it. So you want to do your research. Not just your research on the school, but maybe even the local area that you're applying to. I know a lot of students, when they apply to the University at Buffalo, we get a lot of questions about the Buffalo area, the Buffalo weather. And these are great questions to ask because you want to make sure that the environment you're in is going to be a good fit for you, or that you're ready for that kind of environment. But also do the research on your program. So know the requirements and know the deadlines of the programs and the schools that you're applying to. For instance, at the Graduate School of Education, we offer about 90 programs over the course of our 4 departments, and the program deadlines can range. So can the requirements. We have some programs that require you to get letters of recommendation, and we have other programs that require you to just have references. So I can explain that difference between the 2 of those a little bit further on in the presentation, but you want to know exactly what the program is asking you to submit for your documentation. My one colleague, she made an Excel sheet when she was applying to different schools, and that Excel sheet had exactly the dates for the different programs she was applying to. It had the information that she needed to submit for her documentation. So that might be a good way to keep track of that, to create a spreadsheet or a checklist. The next thing on this is transcripts, financial aid. It all takes time, and that is 100% correct. Most programs are going to have you submit a transcript. It will determine whether or not you have to submit an unofficial transcript or an official transcript. So what's the difference between the 2? At the Graduate School of Education, we will accept unofficial transcripts for your application process. So an unofficial means you have a copy of your transcript and you're submitting it to your application portal, and we're okay with taking that. If you're accepted into our program, we will then require an official transcript. Official means it comes directly from your previous undergraduate institution to our office. So you have to put in a request with your previous school, previous institution, and have those transcripts sent to us. Typically, for it to be an official, it can't go through the hands of the student when it arrives to our office. And those things take time. So if the program you're applying to, unlike the Graduate School of Ed, requires you to have an official transcript for your application, make sure you're ordering those ahead of time so you can meet that application deadline. Now, financial aid also takes time. If you're thinking about going to graduate school, a lot of students don't know this, but you still might qualify for financial aid at the graduate level. At least for our students, you have to be in about 6 credits a semester. So that's 2 courses at the Graduate School of Ed to qualify for financial aid. Now, it doesn't mean you'll receive aid. It can differ per student. So why we always suggest that you start the financial aid process pretty early on, especially if you're going through the application process. Fill out your FAFSA, contact the financial aid at the schools you're applying to, and just make sure that process is pretty set for you. The next is update your resume or your CV. So some of our programs do require a resume, some do not. The one thing that I tell students that are applying to our program is it will never hinder you to submit additional information. So if there's a program you're applying to, I know some students that are interested in school psychology or school counseling, they weren't sure. That program doesn't require a resume for the application, but if you have experience working in a school setting or working with school-aged children, it might benefit you to update your resume and submit that documentation because it shows that you've had previous experience. So like I said, you might not be required, but it doesn't hurt to submit. The next is your personal statement. So your personal statement will go a little bit further on later in the slides. But the one thing I always suggest is to have a second pair of eyes to review your personal statement. Just someone that can go in and make sure that there's no errors, that everything is set and that your paper is cohesive and it makes sense. So your personal statement can be pretty detrimental to your application. So just make sure you're getting someone else to review that before you submit. Now on here is a thing called non-degree. For those who don't know, non-degree is you're able to take a class without being in a matriculated program. So say you're unsure if the program you're applying to is going to be a good fit for you, you can call our office and ask if you can do what's called non-degree and take a class in our school before you're admitted into the program. This could be a good way too if you have a lower GPA than what's required and you want to show that you're able to do graduate level schoolwork. You are able to apply for non-degree, take a class, get 3 credits, and show that you're capable of graduate coursework. If you have any questions about non-degree in the future, feel free to put it in the chat and we could talk about it after today's presentation as well. The next is alumni and mentors. So we have an alumni ambassador program and we also have this current student ambassador program. So if you ever want to get in contact with any of those individuals, it is going to be beneficial for you. They're going to be able to answer questions like what it's like to be a current student or what it was like to be a student in the program. And these can be questions that are pretty big on determining what program is a good fit for you. So you can get those questions asked. And next is connect with an admissions representative, which is what you're doing now. So back to the admissions essay, AKA the goal statement, the statement of purpose, the personal statement. So you're going to see this kind of written out differently. We call it the statement of education and career goals to the Graduate School of Education, but it's pretty specific to every application usually has some form of statement you have to submit. So the statement, you want to make sure you're asking these following questions. Why this school in particular? Why this program in particular? How can this help you reach your goals? And how can you contribute to the program? Some schools and some programs might have a list of bullet points they want you to answer while you're writing your statement, but these are pretty general. We always suggest that if you're able to weave these questions into your statement, it's beneficial for you too, because the school wants to know why you're picking their program specifically. One thing I say is that there is a hidden agenda with your essay. They want to make sure that you're able to write at the graduate level. So it's also a way for them to see your writing before you enter school. So I always tell students to take your statement seriously, get someone to review it that's maybe unbiased, that will give you a honest review of your statement before you submit. It's an important part of your essay. It also will tell the people reading it how well you follow instructions if they have a list of what they want you to write. And the last thing I would say for that is, of course, it's also a writing sample. Recommendations. So I touched about this a little bit earlier, that we require recommendations for some program and recommenders for other programs. So what's a recommendation? A recommendation is typically any professional letter of recommendation that shows that you're able to, or that someone's giving you the credit that you're able to do graduate level coursework, or that you should be admitted into the program you're applying to. So I will say any professional reference, some schools will require you to have academic references, and it will be listed typically in the requirements for the application. For example, we have some programs that will say 2 academic references and 1 professional reference is needed to apply for the program. It's usually not allowed to submit any recommendations from a family or friend, just for bias purposes, but we do recommend that if you are applying to a program, to try to seek professors or any professional reference, like a supervisor, maybe a coworker, a volunteer coordinator, anyone that's able to attest to your skills and abilities that can transfer into the program you're applying to. What I will say, and what I typically suggest, is make sure you're asking your individuals to write your letters of recommendation before applying to the program. Let them know if there's a deadline to apply to your program, if there is a deadline. 9 times out of 10, the one thing that holds up a lot of applications at the Graduate School of Education is because we're awaiting recommendations to arrive. So I always tell students, let them know ahead of time if there's a deadline, if you're applying to something and the date for your application is December 1st, tell your recommender, can you write me a letter of recommendation, and the deadline to submit is November 15th. So that gives you some wiggle room to get that letter of recommendation in. I always suggest as well, if you're asking someone, give them a copy of your resume, so that kind of shows a little bit more of who you are, maybe outside of the realm that they know you, so that they can help draft a better letter for you and submit that. Let them know what school you're applying to, what program you're applying to as well, and give them guidance on what to include. So if there's something that you specifically want in your letter of recommendation, don't be afraid to ask. Usually recommenders are there to assist you and to help you get into the program you're applying to. So they're usually willing to incorporate what you need into your letter. Now, here are some additional requirements for international students. I know we have some students who are here joining us today from different countries, so thank you for coming and enjoying our webinar as well. Some things that you need as an international student would be a copy of your passport biographical page. You also need official test scores for English, as if your first language isn't English, we typically do require scores. They do depend on what test you're taking, what like minimum score requirement that you need. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to email me after today or put it in the chat and we can work through that process. Some countries that students are coming from are automatically exempt from this. So if you do have any questions about the exemption list, always feel free to email us as well. One thing that gets a little bit confusing is when you're applying to the program as an international student, it will list that financial documentation and bank statements are a requirement. So international students applying to a program, they must document their ability to pay for cost while they're studying in the United States. It's typically the cost for 1 year they have to prove. You do not have to do the financial documentation or the bank statement during your application process. So we get that question a lot. This is only required if you've been accepted to the program and after funding decisions have been made. That's when you will need to submit the remaining bank statement and financial documentation. Now, here's a sample timeline for applying to a program. So we have a lot of programs, especially for those who are interested in counseling, that have a deadline of January 1st. So what I tell myself when I look at a deadline's January 1st, that I have to set an internal deadline for myself. So I usually shoot for having my application done by December 15th, just to give me some wiggle room. So what I want to do by October 1st is start reaching out to my letters of recommendation, asking them to write letters on my behalf, giving them the information they need to write those letters. And then that checklist can be checked off. The next thing I want to start doing by November at the latest is writing my first draft of my personal statement. You want to also request copies of your transcripts, and you want to make sure that those arrive by December if you're applying for a January 1st deadline. And then you want to get all your materials together, typically in December, but give yourself 15 days of wiggle room. The reason I say that is because you can always submit an application early. So I always tell students to try to submit their application about 15 days prior to the deadline, because you never know if something's going to be considered incomplete. For example, we might go through your application once it's been submitted and realize that a page of your transcript has been cut off. And then we will reach out to you and seek that page that was cut off to be a part of your application. Sometimes if you're so close to the deadline, you'll miss it by the time you get our email and you're able to respond back to us. So giving yourself that wiggle room is going to be beneficial in the long run. Tuition and fee information. So this does change year to year. Below are the costs of tuition and fees for the 2023 academic year. It has remained pretty consistent for 2024, as we've seen. So you'll receive this PowerPoint. You'll be able to click on the link that's been provided and check if anything has changed or will change. But this is what the current fees are right now. You might see in-state and out-of-state. So what does that mean? So in-state means you're a New York State resident. If you are a New York State resident and you claim that on your application, you do have to prove it once you've been accepted into the program. So this is typically by submitting 3 documents that prove New York State residency. So that only happens after you've been accepted. You don't have to worry about it during the application process. But I do like to remind students, if you do say you're an in-state resident, you will have to prove it or you'll be billed at the out-of-state rate. Out-of-state is for those who are coming from out of state, of course, different states outside of New York State. If you're applying to an online program, in-state and out-of-state is relatively close to each other, just because you're an online program. So the format is pretty similar and all the fees are pretty similar. So for international student tuition and fees, this is for the 2024 academic year. International applicants must document the full cost of only their first year of study before they can get their I-20 to get their visa to come to study here. So this is the budget breakdown for 2024. So it's just an estimated budget for international graduate students. The tuition cost for the year is $23,000. Fees, including health insurance, room and board, for an estimated total of about $48,000 per year. As I mentioned in the previous slide, you only have to submit this documentation after you've been accepted and after funding decisions have been made. So if you receive funding decisions and you receive scholarships or grants, you can redact what you've received from the overall estimated total. Now, as you're applying to graduate school, additional costs to consider. Here's a couple things that you might not think about ahead of time, but you should be just in your thought process while considering graduate school programs. So of course, the first is books and materials. That's hard to estimate before going into a program because it can range, but just keeping in mind that those might be additional costs. Of course, housing. Are you going to live on campus? Are you going to live off campus? Are you traveling in to come here? So those are things that you are going to want to consider. If you've been accepted into the Graduate School of Education, for example, we admit students into an accepted student group where you can connect with students that talk about housing. If you want to live on campus, but you don't have a roommate or you don't want a roommate and you want to live off campus, there's always people in that chat to help you through that process. We also have campus housing here at the University of Buffalo that can help you with that process. If you're applying to a school outside of the University of Buffalo, just reach out to their admissions office and ask them about their housing process. They're usually pretty nice and pretty helpful. Food. So are you going to get an on-campus food pass or are you going to eat more so outside of campus? That's another thing to consider. There's transportation and travel costs. For our students, they do have access to a University of Buffalo Stampede, which takes them to all of our University of Buffalo campuses using their student card. So you want to ask your school that you're applying to or university what their transportation is like too. That's an important question, especially for those who are coming on campus without a vehicle. The next is conferences and professional associations. So we do have scholarships or costs that we will provide students for different conferences. Most of the time you do have to apply for those conference fees to help you, but we do offer those for our students. So you want to ask the school you're applying to, what kind of conferences or professional association benefits do they provide their graduate students? And the last one is the licensure, examinations, and credentials. So we have many programs that lead to New York State certifications. If you're considering mental health counseling, for example, your licensure is going to come at your own cost. So our program will get you the educational requirements to apply for licensure, but it's up to the student to apply for the licensure and provide that cost for taking that exam. Now, how to finance your graduate education. So this can be pretty tricky. There are different types of federal aid that you can receive. There's the federal direct unsubsidized loan. With an unsubsidized loan, you are responsible for the interest from the moment the loan has been distributed to your account. So this type of loan essentially usually has a limit of how much that they can give you. The next is the federal Graduate Plus loan. The Graduate Plus loan, or a Grad Plus loan, is a type of federal student loan that is designed so that you can get a loan for the entire amount of your education. So it's not a fixed amount like the unsubsidized one. So a lot of students don't think at the graduate level they can receive financial aid, but there is a possibility. So I always tell students to apply. Of course, there's institutional scholarships, fellowships, and assistantships. At the Graduate School of Education, we do our scholarships and our fellowships a little bit differently. We review all students for scholarships and awards with their application. So there's no separate application that you have to do to apply for Graduate School of Education funding. On your application, there's a question that will ask you if you're interested in being considered for any funding. Once you click yes, then you will be automatically reviewed based off of your application for any funding within the Graduate School of Education. If you've been accepted into the program and say you only received a couple scholarships from us, or you didn't receive any, you can apply for scholarships university-wide. There's a scholarship portal called the University of Buffalo Scholarship Portal that will allow you to apply for scholarships that might pertain to you university-wide. You can also apply for assistantships at the graduate level in that portal as well. If you're a current SUNY employee and you have UUP benefits, you can also use your union benefits to take a class or two, usually a semester. There's also payment plans. So if you find that you have to pay a pretty substantial amount of your education, you can typically contact student accounts and get on a payment plan for the semester. So you're not paying for your full studies in one lump sum, but you're able to break that down throughout the months in your program. We do have the Office of Fellowships and Scholarships as well that can help you with that process of finding some scholarships and fellowships that could be beneficial for you. Now, how do I apply for these funds? As I mentioned, there's no direct application for our scholarships and within the Graduate School of Education. It's part of your application to the program. So once your accepted students are communicated with the amount of funding that they will receive, it's typically a couple weeks after you receive your acceptance letter from the Graduate School of Education. As I mentioned, you can also apply for any scholarships at the UB Bullseye account, which is a resource for students once they've been accepted into the program. And here's some final tips and tricks before going to grad school. So for doctoral students, I don't know if there's any students here interested in the PhDs or EDDs that we offer, but at the doctoral level, we always suggest that you reach out to the faculty and contact them early. So doctoral programs usually require that you select some faculty member that you think aligns with your research interest and your research goals. That faculty member will be then considered to be your advisor. It's not a guarantee that the person you listed in your letter will be your advisor, but it gives the faculty committee reviewing your application some insight of your research interests and who you want to work with. At the master's level, it typically does not require you to reach out to find an advisor. You're usually automatically assigned one upon acceptance. So on your acceptance letter, if you are accepted into a program, it usually lists who your faculty advisor is directly on your acceptance letter. Another tip is engage with your UB community. So a lot of our faculty profiles do show their research, and you can click on their publications and read a little bit more of what they're doing. That's a good way to get a feel for the school and get a feel for the education that we provide, as well as what faculty are doing in their respective fields. So that's a good way to get yourself involved, just to learn more. You can also learn more about your field by doing looking at professional organizations, reading newsletters that have to do with your field, joining graduate school groups, or seeking mentors in the field that you're interested in. As I mentioned earlier today, you want to reach out to your references early. Maybe there's a good reference that also aligns, or recommender that also aligns with your program. So contact them and see if they have any insight to the program that you're applying to as well. And as I mentioned earlier, start your application and submit as early as you can. If you're a UB current student, there are some resources for you as a current UB undergraduate student, like the Center for Excellence in Writing. At the Center for Excellence in Writing for UB students and UB alum, applying to a program, they will actually help you write your personal statements and review them. So if you ever have any questions about how to go through that process or you want assistance, check out the Center for Excellence in Writing. If you're not a current UB undergraduate student, contact your individual undergraduate institution, because they might have something like the Center for Excellence in Writing at your school. Similar to that is the Career Design Center. So the Career Design Center, they will help you with your resume, with mock interviews. Some graduate programs do require students to interview for the program they're applying to. So usually most schools have a Career Design Center. So like I said, if you're not a UB undergrad student, contact your Career Design Center and see if they can help you with that process and getting ready for grad school. The next is the Health and Wellness Center. As a UB student, you have access to all of that as well. We have workshops and counseling and health services that are very beneficial for those who are in school. And of course, the UB Information Technology Office. So they help you with any UBIT issues or other technical needs. So if you have any problems with your application, feel free to email us and we will walk you through that process, but they're also a resource for you as well. And then other additional resources, if you're a veteran, we do have the Veteran Services Office that helps you with your VA paperwork, with anything that you need transitioning to UB. There's a different person that can help you just get connected to our school and help you through that process. We also have resources for new students that are admitted into the Graduate School of Education. So we do a lot of just team building when you join the Graduate School of Education. We have a lot of new student roadmaps events just to help you through the process of what it's like to become a new student within the Graduate School of Education. And same with international students. We also help you through that process, making sure you're going through and getting your I-20 to have your visa paperwork. And there's a lot of resources at our university to assist you with just becoming a student at our school. And then at the University of Buffalo, we have one place called One Capon. It's a one-stop shop for everything that you need as a student at UB. One Capon has financial aid, to get your UB card, your student account and billing information, parking and transportation, registrar, and health insurance. For those applying to an online program like the Information and Library Science students, you still have access to all this stuff, although it won't be in One Capon for you, it will be virtual, but they do have virtual assistants and different advising sessions that you can join on Zoom. So that can help you through the process of getting all these things done as a new student. And of course, you all already checked out most of our event pages and registered for today, but I wanted to thank you all so much for coming for this session. And I hope I was able to cover some of the information that you need for graduate school and that you attended Graduate School 101. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm also going to stop the recording and just open it up for chats if anyone has any questions about what I said. I know I threw a lot at you, so we can go through and break this down.